moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Now everybody shuts up once. It'll be an hour and a half of silence. Stage fright.
I will say I want to see that movie, Pixy Stix Bear.
Oh, believe you me, there's already a slew of imitators coming out, hot on the heels.
As there should be.
Of our feature film. And I think we're already into it. Pleasantries be dashed. I think we are just getting right into it today.
Yes.
Welcome.
People just get dropped in the middle of this stuff, not knowing what the hell's going on. No introduction. You don't know who we are. Well, that's not true.
We have a very intricate introduction, so they know who we are. Let me just make a concession to something that Christina suggested we do a long time ago, because I think that's what you were about to say.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking it too. Everybody knows who you are.
Yes, correct.
Not to be sexist, but you are obviously female. And there is one female name in our introduction. So that is you. But Jeff and I are kind of interchangeable to the public at large. My name is Jeff. No.
Yes.
Jim. Jim.
Well, it depends.
Don't confuse them.
If people have issues with what I say, I'm Jim. I'm the young guy.
Yeah, really.
That was that guy,
I am
Jeff.
Jim. I am Jim.
And I am Jeff.
He is Jeff. Yeah.
I'm Jeff. And welcome. Thank you. Indeed.
Thanks for listening. Yeah.
Yes, we do have people listening. I got some feedback from last week's episode I shared with you that...
Yes, that was... See, I knew somebody would know. If I brought it up, I knew somebody would know.
So so my friend Chris, who listens to the show, immediately sent me back and he's like, Thanos was called out as coming back at the end of, which one was it? Infinity Wars, I think it was.
But this week, Nature Strikes Back could be a loose theme.
Ooh, yes. Day of the Animals.
Oh,
different movie. Oh,
I was really looking forward to the Alamo pre-show for this because.
And did they not disappoint?
And they did show the preview for Day of the Animals. They did show the preview for Grizzly, which I fully expected. They did show a clip of Prophecy.
Yeah.
A clip?
Movie.
Clip? Okay,
yeah.
Not the trailer.
Yeah, not the trailer.
Was it the sleeping bag scene?
It was the sleeping bag scene.
Yeah.
And everybody in the theater laughed when the dummy got thrown across the clearing and hit the rock and the feathers scattered.
Exploded.
Yep. Whoever at the Alamo chose that is probably sitting in the back with a self-satisfied, smug smile on his face. Yeah, that's right.
Wait until this unfolds.
It's like the modern day equivalent of making a mixtape.
And they showed a clip from that documentary, The Bear. It's pretty old. I don't know if you guys remember it.
Yes,
but there's a
I
scene
remember.
where the little cub eats the mushrooms and gets high. So they showed that.
Which is what you should do before you watch this movie.
And they showed a commercial of Clint Eastwood from the 80s telling people not to take crack cocaine.
Oh.
Well, the movie itself kind of beat them to it there because,
that whole opening sequence is.
So let me just point out that I do have Day of the Animals in my back pocket. So
do you?
Yes.
I thought it was a squirrel in your pocket.
Yeah, but I was looking forward to the Alamo pre-show more than I was looking forward to the movie. I was like, they're going to do so much fun stuff for this. And they did, it was all that stuff that I mentioned. Plus they had like any ads that featured bears. So of course,
a lot of Smokey the Bear
and other stuff. Yeah, any kind of ad that featured a bear.
Coca-Cola polar bears?
If there were Coca-Cola polar bears, it was before I got there. Usually they choose older things.
I wonder what they do for a movie with gravitas, where, your sensitive ponytail guys are coming in to watch the movie, and they don't want their, we
got to poke fun at this somehow.
Their sense of melodrama interrupted so rudely before the film starts. I wonder how that's going to play out. So once you see a movie that's coming out that's playing that's not
that's serious
on the level of Cocaine Bear, tell us what happens there. All right. So before we get into this feeding frenzy of an episode, do we have any news that you want to drop right up front?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
Absolutely. I got nothing this week.
No. All right. Well, that kind of goes with the territory. It goes with the territory because I was concerned that the movie itself would not live up to its trailer. So we are about to discuss if it actually does. Now, before we get into the movie itself, we've been talking about this now that we're getting back to going into the theater on a regular basis. Especially Christina, because she has her exciting new theater to go to, which she just shared. This movie, I don't know if it's going to close the weekend at number one, but it closed Friday at number one. Yeah. Beat out Ant-Man. And everybody's talking about how Cocaine Bear is saving the cinema. I think that may be an overstatement.
That is a little big.
Because it made, I think, $8 million on its first Friday, and it has a pretty substantial budget to make back. Just because of all the CG work, I think it's like 35 million. 35.
Yeah.
Now, I was extremely apprehensive, not because of the movie I was about to see, but because of the crowd, the clientele that I had in my mind that I would be sitting amongst in Cocaine Bear. That was my apprehension. So I get to the theater early. Now, I didn't go to my Regal because just the way that the movie times were starting, it was more convenient for me to go to my local, which is a much smaller theater. And there's much more risk involved in a smaller theater because, like I said previously, you can't get away from other people in a smaller theater. There's no space. So we get there early. When I say early, about 30 minutes. And there was maybe 2 seats already sold. So we chose to sit not in the recliners because everybody goes for those immediately. We went for the regular all the way in the back because we don't want anybody behind us for this movie.
Especially a bear.
Especially the clientele that we saw coming into the theater after we sat down. These are people that I would never, ever want to be in the same room with.
Wow. They may be saying the same thing to you.
Possibly, but I don't think I gave them any reason to think that. Now, first of all, 10 minutes after we sat down, a group of 20 men came in together.
Were they all in camouflage?
They were a fraternity. A complete fraternity came into the theater.
Oh, you had a frat experience.
I have no experience with a fraternity, but there was these 2 older guys sitting with them as well, like the father figures. So I don't know how these things work. Maybe somebody can elucidate, as they say in Aristocats. And of course, they're like standing up in the rows talking to each other. I'm like, please.
Rows and rows, huh?
So they commandeered about 3 or 4 rows completely. And the people just kept coming in after that. And they were all of that ilk. I don't want to insult anybody too badly here. I think I've already done that. Yeah.
Too late.
And so thankfully, us being all the way in the back, we had a row of 5 seats and we were sitting on the 2 end seats of our row. So, the trailers start, and we got 4 trailers this time, which was pretty amazing for this theater. Usually it's only 1. And so many people were coming in during the trailers. I got to enjoy none of them because, it's people shuffling in front of me. So the John Wick trailer came on. I saw none of it because
that's probably good for you anyways. You don't want to learn
of the jostling in the theater. The last trailer was this Will Ferrell talking dog movie.
Strays.
Yes, we also saw
Everybody uproariously laughed.
Lost their minds.
I've got to effing see this. That's the next effing movie I'm going to see. And
that was you saying that.
So
right?
this movie is not saving cinema. This movie is getting people to come into the theater that only come in for movies that have drug use, excessive use of the F-bomb, and whatever else brings these people out on a Saturday night.
Humping dogs.
The first 5 minutes, I thought, okay, I'm in the clear. There's nobody sitting next to us in our 3 seats. But as we know, this is the opportunity for the worst audience member to come in 10 to 15 minutes after the film starts. So they come in, excuse me, and, come right by us because apparently these are the last 3 seats in the theater that are open. They sit down, and the guy on the end, thankfully, so there's a buffer of 2 people in between us, is the loud talker of this group. And he's one of these people that needs the attention on him. So whenever there's a moment in the film where everybody laughs, he has to say something in order for the attention to come back to him. So I don't know if you get me where I'm coming from, but I've experienced this a lot in movies. I'm just going to look at it this way. I have no investment in this movie, so I'm not going to get angry. I'm just going to sit here and experience this with the audience that is meant to enjoy this movie. And that's what I did.
While clutching your pearls.
I mean, the truth is like no one deserves an Alamo Drafthouse more than you, Jim, because you're not allowed to come in after the movie starts. They refund your ticket. If you show up late, you can't come in.
Good. Simple as that.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an age restriction.
And there's the age restriction, and no one's allowed to talk or text. And if you do, then other people can narc on you, and you will be escorted to the exit. Yeah. It says so in the there's like a little video pre-show thing. Yeah,
there's actually a little test you have to take up front. They ask you a questionnaire. Bros before hoes? Yeah, dude. All right, you can't come. You got to go. But I do have some news, which you just mentioned Regal. And my Regal is not only still open, but it's going to remain open for the next 2 years plus.
Good. And apparently now they serve alcohol.
It received a stay of execution. It is one of, there was 39 that were originally shut down. Only 30 of those are actually going through. It has been saved. From my understand, the town has worked with them and they've renewed their contract for at least 2 years. And yes, when I got there yesterday, they now serve beer and wine. And I immediately shared that with my wife, and she said, maybe I will come with you next time. Because I almost had her on the hook for Cocaine Bear. And she goes, is it opening weekend? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not doing it. She's about as intolerant of people as you are, Jim. So
she would have been up and fighting by the end of the showing that I was sitting in.
Yeah. So I did not have that many people. I did the first showing on Saturday, maybe 15, 20 people, but they were all my age. And I had a couple in front of me who were more entertaining than a movie. They were so into this that it was a joy.
What did really strike me as funny, and the only thing that struck me as funny about this crowd that I was sitting in, was 4 teenagers who came in, obviously not 18, who sat down, who would normally be the bad guys who were talking loudly. They realized immediately they were way out of their league. So they were small potatoes. It was kind of like the Duchamp gang in the movie.
Yeah, well, we saw how they.
That's who was that. These are these 4 kids that were sitting in there. It's like, well, maybe we better shut up, or these guys are going to toss us right out on our collective behinds. But
I had a whole bunch of jokes written. Yeah, this is why you're going to need your own podcast, so then you can make all the bear jokes you want, and nobody. Well, no. Christina might she'll roll her eyes a couple times. It's going to happen. I'm just laying it out there right now. Jim's already laid the groundwork for a couple bear jokes. So,
All right. So we've already laid the groundwork, as Jeff said. All right. What did we think of Cocaine Bear? Did it live up to that amazing trailer, which maybe should have existed on its own, like in a la Grindhouse kind of a fashion?
This does, I'm going to say this right now, this does feel like a poorly written Saturday Night Live skit that they stretched out for 90 minutes. But having said that, this was absolutely ludicrous, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
See, now I was thinking when it was over, I thought this movie was better than it had any right to be. In some ways.
In some ways, I agree.
But it could have actually been good, like not even in an ironic way, if they had figured out who the main character of this movie is. Because the number one problem with this is that there's like 4 different strands of a story.
Yes.
And there's like the ranger with the delinquents, right? And then there's
the
cop who's pursuing from another state who's pursuing Sid White. And then there's Dee Dee and Henry, these 2 kids that go into the woods, and their mom who's pursuing them. And then there's David and Eddie who are having their own story. And it would have been extremely sensible of the screenwriter to try to make more of these storylines mesh, like maybe David and Eddie encounter the kids in the woods type of thing. Because what happens is you start off kind of thinking you're going to follow these kids, right? They're in peril. They're skipping school. They're going into the woods. Dee Dee's mom finds out. She goes to look for them. But then you go away from their story for like a huge chunk in the middle of the movie while you have the bear chasing the ranger and the Duchamp gang going into the ranger station. And then the whole sequence at the gazebo, which is like almost like a set piece in the middle of the film. And I'm saying, like, who am I supposed to care about here? Like, you've almost forgotten the kid. You've almost forgotten the kids.
Yeah.
They were trying for an ensemble piece, but obviously they set up that Kerry Russell was supposed to be the main character. But as you say, they jump from her for long periods of time. So maybe they were going for the Poseidon adventure of bear films, but it didn't.
But I think that they could have, like, the really easy thing would have been to have like David and Eddie encounter the kids, right? And then they're all running from the bear.
You want these storylines to converge at some point, and they do,
right. But not until the very end.
I agree with you wholeheartedly in that aspect. I
can tell you that my audience was concerned about none of this. They just liked the arms being ripped off and the F-bombs dropped and the punk kids getting beaten up in the bathroom. I was concerned in the beginning because I was kind of smugly sitting there. I guess this doesn't live up to the trailer because it takes a while. There's no manic energy in the beginning. There's a lot of setup. I would say like 20 minutes, 25 minutes of setup until we finally get to the first set piece where Jesse Tyler Ferguson is in the tree that you see from the trailer. And then it kind of goes from there. But you have the opening with the two tourists that get ripped up. But after that, it's like a dearth of bear for a while.
Well, you got to use them sparingly.
You got to use them, but still, you want the manic energy. You're expecting the manic energy of the trailer. Like, is this going to live up to what? Like, there's a lot of hype going into this.
Well, like I said, this on paper, this is a great concept. But now you're taking this and you're stretching out over a 100 minute.
But I think they could have done it well. And I want to say, Elizabeth Banks said that she really admires Sam Raimi, and that's kind of the tone that she was going for. And I'd like to see her try again, maybe with a better script, like to do a horror comedy type thing, because I think some of the elements are there, but the script is so disjointed. There's no sense of story that you're supposed to be following. It all just seems random. I mean, even when I forget the name of the other officer who shows up and has actually betrayed.
Oh yeah, I can't think of her name either.
Isaiah Whitlock's character.
Yeah, Bob.
It's like, where did this come from? Like, this is out of left field. Like, there's nothing.
There's a lot of out of left field kind of moments in this. Right up front when you see, Phil Lord and Chris Miller's name attached as a producer, you're like, oh, it's got some pedigree behind it. Mm-hmm. But it was a little disjointed. The certain set pieces, the ambulance set piece alone.
Yeah,
that
probably was the highlight. Yeah.
And there's a lot of it very kind of Pulp Fiction-ish where you do get these different storylines and then they kind of merge together. And you see it when, these go up, the ranger and the mom and the other guy, they go up one trail and then here goes the bad guys up the other trail. There's a lot of setup and it doesn't always pay off, but I think the scenes with the bear are very enjoyable. And I will say right now that the special effects were pretty impressive, knowing that is not a real bear at all.
It was above your standard sci-fi movie CG effects. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was 2 steps above Sharknado for sure. But that's the kind of manic energy and mentality I think you have to come into this. I mean, you get it right up front. Cocaine Bear. You know what you're getting. Like you said, you see the trailer and you're like, because I questioned it. I'm like, what's the tone on this? And you said straight up, Jim, it's right there in the trailer. It is what it is. And they play it pretty damn straight. It's a bear who gets into coke and goes on a bender.
The hilarious thing about my audience as well is that 50% of the people that were coming in, like, this is based on a true story, right?
Oh, I know.
So they're watching this thinking that the entire thing took place.
Well, that's what's great about the opening, like you said. So it's set in the 80s, 1985, and it is based on a true story. And they're using real footage of the finding of this guy who fell out of the plane, died, in the fact that there's coke everywhere. But it was months later that they found this bear dead.
Who died. Yeah.
Who died.
Who didn't kill anybody, by the way.
Right.
He just died immediately after ingesting the cocaine.
This bear is now like stuffed in some Kentucky strip mall.
I did know that because they showed it during the pre-show. Waylon Jennings
there you
owned
go.
the bear at some point.
Waylon Jennings owned
Yes.
That's great. So there's a story there. And I think that it's a weird enough premise that someone was just like, boom, let's go. Love it. That's your elevator pitch. Bear strung out on cocaine goes on a killing spree.
As we speak, it's probably already stolen from that mall.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure people are like, it's a mecca now. They're all going there.
They showed the ad for the mall. But before they showed the ad for the mall, they had a little title card that said the bear had been stuffed and that Waylon Jennings had owned the bear.
Waylon Jennings. There's a name that doesn't come up on this podcast very often. Yes.
But so as Jeff said, the movie opens with a factual scene where
Dan Rathers.
There's this drug dealer abandoning a plane and he's throwing out drugs. And I guess it's like a coordinated spot where you're supposed to dump your drugs over Chattahoochee in Georgia, over a mountain range. So he's dumping out the packages, and then he goes to jump out with a parachute, hits his head on the door frame of the plane, and the parachute never deploys. Well, the emergency chute does, but he's got too much weight, and he's dead anyway.
Plummets.
So then we are set up that Sid, who is Ray Liotta, one of his last film roles, is the dealer, the main dealer who this guy was working for, who needs to now go find these dropped packets of cocaine to bring to his boss, or he's dead. So that sets up the story of where the cocaine came from. And of course, we all know that the bear gets to the cocaine before anybody else can. And that's basically, that's what it is. Now, the bear's already gone. The bear's already on a bender by the time the kids get to it, because those poor backpackers in the beginning see the bear banging its head against the tree. Something is wrong with this bear.
Yeah, it's some goofiness.
And then we get some subplots, as Christina was mentioning. There's quite a few subplots. The Duchamp gang, which are a pop art gang, I think is what Ranger Liz describes them as, that she's always been after. Yet when they come into the ranger station, she has no idea who it is. Like, random teenagers. I wonder if this is the teenage gang that I've been after all this time. And then she's got a crush on Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who we see in the trailer has climbed up the tree. So it's all these random story things that are thrown at you that you just kind of have to go with, without much background to it. Because then, as soon as these things are introduced, then the bear comes in and just throws everything into chaos. So it's just set up really for bear kills.
I was very sad to see Ranger Liz not make it out alive.
Oh, my audience was very glad just because of the way that she was.
Well, I mentioned this ambulance scene at one point, and I'm just like, the only way to describe this is Grizzly. It's cartoon. Yeah. You mentioned it before that Elizabeth Banks mentioned Sam Raimi as kind of like an inspiration, and you get a lot of that kind of cartoon blood and guts from the Evil Dead franchise. This whole scene is just out of control. You don't see it coming because it gets really, really gross.
Yeah.
And again, I want to chime in here. So one of the EMS, the emergency services, Scott Seiss, is the actor who gets crushed underneath the door, right, when he goes to open the door. They showed at the pre-show, he's apparently like a TikTok star who became famous for doing IKEA.
I see him on Twitter and I thought that was the guy. I'm like, well, what is he doing in a movie?
Mm-hmm. And they showed some of his like TikToks. Apparently he was at IKEA or pretended to be an IKEA employee and then would like do these funny TikToks about people who have complaints about things in IKEA. Actually, he was actually pretty funny, and I was kind of expecting more of him in the movie because of
and
that.
and so he parlayed that into an acting career.
Yeah.
What are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong that we're not all over TikTok?
Speaking of people that you're surprised to see show up, the character of Sid has a son who's trying to get out of the family business, played by Alden Caleb Ehrenreich.
Mhm.
Aaron Reich.
Eddie Ehrenreich.
Yep.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
In the Solo movie.
Young Solo.
So we got Solo in here.
I know.
And then, of course, David, who is kind of in between Sid and Eddie, on the verge of wanting to get out of the business because you can see that his heart is not into it anymore. I'm like, this kid looks like Ice Cube. And sure enough,
it's the son.
This is Ice Cube's son.
And I think he played
O'Shea Jackson is his name.
Yeah, I think he played Ice Cube in
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Came out a couple years ago. One of the things, because this takes place in 85, they make first of all, the soundtrack, because I'm a child of the 80s, was very fun soundtrack. But I think that some of the production kind of leaned into that 80s cheese of like a Sharknado or like Snakes on a Plane or something that, a cheesy movie that we would probably find on Netflix now. But back in the day, it was, showing up on Showtime at 11 o'clock at night. The clothing doesn't help either when you got, what's her name, Carrie Russell running around in this pink tracksuit.
And there's a little bit of like modern slang. I don't think that was being used in 1985 either. Like I'm going to go up to the top of the gazebo. Yeah, I don't think I ever heard anybody say exactly that in 1985. But I also picked up on them playing Depeche Mode's "Just Can't Get Enough." Yeah. I never heard that on the radio in 1985. Maybe if
you were listening to the wrong radio
college station, but in Chattahoochee, Georgia,
I take that right because I had to go to LIR on Long Island in order to hear my new wave stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that about the slang because when you think about films from the 80s, the slang that they use, and they're never in these movies that are like throwbacks, right? You don't hear anybody saying "gag me with a spoon."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mint was a big one in the 80s.
Tubular, yeah, stuff like that.
But there are some missed opportunities, like Christina brought up. You're introduced to these two kids, and Deirdre just wants to go to the waterfall and paint this waterfall. So you think that this is the journey you're going to go on, and when you're introduced to her friend Henry, who's this younger kid, he displays the fact that he just got this WWF wrestling belt. And he shows it off, and you're like, at some point, this has got to come back in the movie. This is going to save him from the bear. The bear is going to clamp down. No, it's never brought up. It's never mentioned. It's not a plot point in any way, shape, or form. The kid
and there's some
is
really
on the run
weird...
from the bear, and she hides in the bear den. And the mom says, let's stay in here. There's two bear cubs. And she's like, this is where we need to hide.
Speaking of Henry, though, there's a weird, these weird character things about him sprinkled in, like his dad doesn't really take care of him and he's hungry, right? He's trying to eat like Dee Dee's food. He's eating the hiker's food because his dad doesn't make lunch for him. And it's like, you want the information that you're given to feel
relevant. Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even to the point where Carrie Russell, obviously the dad's not in the picture for Deirdre or Dee Dee or whatever you want to call her. Yeah, you're right. If you had started connecting some of these other, because all of a sudden Sid comes back into the picture, poor Detective Bob stuck up on top of the gazebo. And there's a lot of really neat, kind of silly character studies going on here, but nothing really, like they just left him. He's dead. He's now just dead on top of the gazebo somewhere. And they just take his dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like nobody thinks to go back to even check on them. At least you're not given that information.
And they passed the ranger who's slaughtered all over the road. Here comes all the cops cars, and they just keep walking.
They're not going to give a statement or anything. So, and also the poor little grandson of Ray Liotta, who is young by himself. You never hear about that again. And like there's some throwaway line at the end where David and Eddie are like, oh, we'll go back because now they're on the run because the drug dealers that Sid was working for are going to be after them. How do we know that they're not already at the kid's house?
Waiting for him to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kids all tied up. That's a sequel, by the way.
And a lot was made of those two kids, that scene where they actually attempt to do the cocaine. So there's
Yeah.
like the moral majority is up in arms about that. I've seen a lot of articles of outraged people.
I don't know. It was hilarious when the kid is like a tablespoon, and I'm like,
Yeah, he's like, I've done it.
Yeah.
This is she's like, what happened? He goes, this doesn't taste like the stuff I normally do. You know, he's trying to be cool in front of this girl.
So it's not because what I was reading, I was like, these kids are going to have like Scarface piles of cocaine and be snorting it. I'm like, that's not the case at all.
You know, you mentioned Scarface. I guess in the script itself, when they originally wrote this, or the treatment, the bear was referred to as Pablo Escobar.
that was the nickname of the original bear.
Of the original bear. All right.
Yeah.
Bareface. You know, hey, say hello to my little cubs. Also, I want to go back to that ambulance scene for 1 second, because why did the bear chase the ambulance?
Why?
It was the lawyer's day off. Silence.
This isn't even Ray Liotta's last film. I was just looking.
It's not?
He has 4 more movies that he made after this one that are like in the hopper that are still going to come out.
I hope he gets a better send off than this. Those little bears chowing down on his gullet.
I was going to say, who was a surprisingly funny character was the leader of the Duchamp kids. Like after they take him hostage, after Eddie and David take him hostage to show where they stashed the cocaine, he's actually pretty funny.
That's actually
some of the lines that he does.
This character's name, I think, is Stash. There's Stash, Ponytail, and Vest. And they all meet pretty ugly devices.
The 2 kids in the ranger station, the one that gets his head blown off from the ranger from behind, and then the other poor kid that gets dismembered in the back room. So yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, Grizzly is a really good description.
Yeah, poor Ranger Liz. I mean, she survived the initial attack. They strapped her into the ambulance. It's insane. It really is over the top. And I think you kind of know what you're getting in for. But if you're looking for a cohesive story, good luck.
I'm just saying, like, if it had a cohesive story, this could have actually been good. It didn't just have to be like a silly thing where you just watch like a few, you're sort of hanging on for those few scenes where the bear eats somebody.
But Christina, you had a tell before, and I agree that this is better slightly than it deserves to be.
Yeah.
Entertaining, yes. No substance. If you're looking for substance, you're looking in the wrong place. Just like Dennis Quaid said last week about Inner Space, if you shut your brain off completely and just go, maybe put blinders on because of the people that are going to be sitting around you as well. And it's too bad they don't have auxiliary jacks in your armrests, just so you could actually maybe put in the earbuds so you can listen to the film unencumbered by any riffraff talking around you. Jeff, you had an issue with Dee Dee staying in the cave, and it didn't look like she was that incapacitated that she couldn't move because she got up with the rest of them.
Right. And obviously the bear did not follow her because the bear was back taking out other people left and right. He was hanging out at the gazebo looking for a picnic basket, taking a nap on top of what's his name there?
That's what I had an issue with, actually. When the bear sits down after one excessive snort and sits right on Eddie because they're playing dead, Eddie and David, at the gazebo, so the bear won't attack them. So the bear gets right on top of Eddie, who is face down, and sits on him. Yeah. And like for about 5 minutes, they're trying to get some laughs out of Eddie, like muffled saying smart ass things from underneath the bear.
Him out.
And then at one point he says, no, it's not a he, it's a she.
Yeah,
well, how do you know that? Because her vagina is on my ear. Is the vagina in the bear's throat?
He's all the way. His feet are hanging out of the bear's butt. So there's no way. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was a mutant bear. So, but I want to go back to the bear itself because there's no bear on set. They didn't use a real bear. This is completely CG. And this gentleman, Alan Henry, was a motion capture actor. He studied under Andy Serkis on the Planet of the Apes movies. And he was on set as the bear, walking around on all fours. He had a fake muzzle with the ping pong eyeballs so that there was a point of reference. And this is all done by Weta. This is all done CG, and yes, there are times when you're like, all right, this is clearly a CG bear, but by and large, if they're interacting with this bear, it's this guy doing motion capture, and I thought it was fantastic work. This is where all your money in the budget went. They probably couldn't even afford a real script after that.
So we're introduced to the Cubs, as we've already said at one point.
Oh yeah, they're definitely setting up a sequence.
Yes, because Sid is like kicking the Cubs, so you're like hating this guy. So
you're waiting for
that
one
he's
of them to
pay
go
for
over.
that. Yeah, that he's got to pay for that for abusing the Cubs, and he does. He shoots Mama Bear, the namesake of the movie. She falls apparently to her death, but nope. In order to revive her,
full Mustafa.
In order to revive her, just give her a little more coke. And that's like a Pulp Fiction adrenaline shot. So she awakens again, goes up, disembowels Sid, and shares his intestines with her cubs.
Learn to feed, kids.
They get their revenge for getting kicked by Sid.
And nobody learns anything.
So the bear lives. Doesn't die, in real life.
You see her with the two cubs at the end.
Yeah.
Because you get another POV shot of, another couple out in the woods. So they never went back to look for this bear to confirm that it was dead, that it wasn't going to kill anybody.
Or to destroy it. I
just want to say, like, in real life, because I just spent 3 weeks in the fall hiking through bear country. You are not supposed to stop and film a bear if you're that close to it.
Yeah, we'll get into it with the other movie, which is, I grew up in the woods. I grew up upstate New York, where there were bears, and we were taught certain things that may
back
or may
away
not.
slowly. When I was out west, there are signs everywhere like, do not approach the bears, carry bear spray.
This is also, don't get too close to the bison out in Yellowstone, and yet every year you hear about someone getting gored.
Yeah, it's real interesting, just as a side note with the bison, like the bison will come pretty close to you. Because we were standing on the side of the road trying to keep our distance, and a family, it appeared to be a family, there was like 2 large bison and a baby crossed the road like within 10 feet of us, and all you kind of do is just kind of like start easing yourself back, like just give them some space.
Right. Yeah.
So that they can do their thing. But, people will really try to get up close, which is, a bison can kill you.
Oh, yeah. Well, any animal. A deer.
Yes.
A deer can take you out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the very opening scene of this movie is this little disclaimer that, by and large, black bears do not interact with humans. And they gave you these little specs on how to deal with a bear. And then it gives credit to Wikipedia. And that right there sets the tone for this entire movie, because my audience was like, it's a joke, because obviously Wikipedia is sus at most.
Yeah, it's too bad that that's where we get most of our information for this.
Well, listen, if I can go in and edit it right now and tell you, no, if you see a bear, run toward him.
So, all right. So how many bushels of cocaine would we give?
Is it bushel?
I don't know. Packets. I don't know.
How many lines?
Out of five, I should say. I should quantify.
Kilos.
Kilos. There you go. Yes. Can I just mention that Elizabeth Banks was on The Late Show, and she had mentioned that she was gunning. She really wanted to direct Thor Ragnarok, and Marvel wouldn't return her phone calls. So I'm wondering now that she's got a little bit. Listen, she put everything on the line for this movie. This is a movie that's either going to make or break your career. And right now it looks like she made the right choice, regardless of what we are saying. You walk into the theater, this delivers. The title says it all. I enjoyed myself. I'm going to give it 4 1/4.
Whoa.
Because I talked this up last night to a couple of my friends who were not really big moviegoers. And I'm like, I saw it. Wait, you saw it? And I'm like, yeah, it's out. I said,
Jeff, are you still high? Should we wait until you come down from this?
I snorted a couple lines of Pixy Stix. Did you pick up when Sid and his gang were making their way to the bear cave? They passed one of the bags hanging in the tree. Just as it's getting dark out, it's sitting right there. So there's other coke I don't know. Did the bear like go find all the other bags and drag it into its cave? But there was another bag that they passed right by.
Speaking of that, like I think Sid would be a dead man anyway if he doesn't deliver, as he said, every single ounce of that.
Yeah, and he made it a point that the whole reason that Eddie was involved was because if he can't deliver, they're going to come after his family, and that means his little boy too. I don't know. I think we're thinking way too hard on this. I think really just turn off your brain.
Yeah. I'm gonna go for 3.5.
Okay.
I was entertained. It delivered on some of the horror gore aspects, and I was worried a quarter of the way into it that it wasn't going to deliver. But then once the manic energy kicks in, it doesn't stop until the end, and it wasn't long. That's also key to a movie like this.
I want to tell you guys something interesting I just discovered while I was looking at the Cocaine Bear Wikipedia page. At the bottom of the page, there's a link to a Slash Film article from 2019 saying that Phil Lord and Chris Miller had recruited the Ready or Not filmmaking team to make this film.
Interesting.
Originally. And it was pitched as a cross between Good Boys and the survival thriller Revenant. Like a group of young boys lost in the woods and forced to reckon with a deadly bear. So this seems like it could have been a completely different.
Didn't we get that with that Alec Baldwin movie though, and Anthony Hopkins, where they're out in dealing with a bear?
That's an old movie, right? Like
I barely remember that. Yeah, barely remember that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, honestly, like the disjointed nature of the script was too much for me. And I'm going to say 2.5. But
fair enough.
I'd like to see.
What would you give the Alamo pre-show?
The Alamo pre-show was like 5 stars. Like seriously, I was so looking forward to it, and my husband was not getting out the door as fast as he could, and I'm like, it starts at 11:20. Come on.
Oh, we gotta go.
So we missed like 5-10 minutes of it.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So there was other stuff that you don't know about?
Yeah. So because
we gotta find out who's putting these things together. It's got to be on a national level.
Yeah, I think it has to be. It seems absurd.
Right. We need to get on this. We need to find out who's pulling this stuff together, because it sounds like they're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, and are they looking for people to help out with that?
I know.
Right?
That's like my dream job right there.
We just review your clips. There you go.
But no, I'm sorry, Christina, I interrupted you. You were about to lay down some heavy criticism of Cocaine Bear in your 2.5 buckets.
Yeah, I just need the script to be a little more together, in order for me to go along. If there had just been like some coherence in any of the storylines, or if it had just picked a main character, I probably would have said 3 or 3.5, but I just didn't feel like I was invested in anything, and I'm just not capable of completely turning my brain off, I guess.
Which is a prerequisite to watch this.
Yeah.
And I just want to also point out that tellingly, my audience also was unawares that the possibility of post-credit sequences existed, because they all got up as soon as the credits started to roll and stood there while the post. So I had to look through people
just to be able to
both times, because then they started to leave again. And then the second scene, and then everybody stopped. So they're all standing in the aisle and in the rows, and not seasoned moviegoers like the three of us.
No. And what's weird is I saw on social media that somebody had taken a screen grab at the very end of the movie. It says Cocaine Bear will be back. I didn't see that. So I think it was
you stayed until the very end?
Yeah. Yes, I have to. You have to at this point. If we're going to talk about this movie.
No, I'm always on my phone. Like, does Cocaine Bear have post-credit scenes? And then we'll say, yes, there's 2. Okay, and now we can leave.
No, but like you mentioned, if nothing else, it's to watch, the names come down, and, the big Marvel movies, it's 20 minutes of special effects people.
When you get to the end, the bear roars, but I didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything either, so it was completely fake. But we all know he will be back.
So let's go to the concession stand, shall we?
Yeah.
Now, not since the Pocky Sticks, I think, have we chosen a snack that you absolutely will not be able to find at the concession stand. So we'll have to sell these bootleg out of our overcoats in the lobby here. I had a time finding Pixy Stix. And as you know, even when I'm not doing the concession stand, when I'm not hosting, I like to sample these things. So I am prepared to talk about them. I looked at every store at my disposal in my immediate vicinity, grocery stores, drugstores, gas stations that had decent candy sections.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ask?
I'm not going to ask. I'm like, oh yeah, I got a secret stash back here. Come on.
What aisle are the Pixy Stix in? Excuse me?
So, thanks to Amazon, I was able to get Pixy Stix. So
this is why we can't have nice things.
Just as a side note, they usually sell them at like party supply stores.
Oh.
Yeah,
like Party City. Places like
I
that.
imagine like at Five Below I could get some, but I didn't have access to a Five Below in the previous week. So I did get my hands on some. And do you see what we did there with this concession treat, Cocaine Bear Pixy Stick? I hope you appreciate it, you people.
I hope you didn't consume them in a cocaine-like fashion.
No, I did not. But I did read that some children, or maybe some not so children, but maybe mentally children, do attempt to ingest Pixy Stix like
my eyes
drug.
are rolling in the back of my head.
And it has no, studies show that it has no effect. No, like sugar directly to the membrane effect type thing. Maybe it does, but they're just trying to dispel. But this is the reason why I brought up this segment, because I was hoping that we would have some kind of odd history with these candies, and we really haven't thus far, other than the Ferraro company buying Nestle.
Everything.
And they also own Pixy Stix, right?
They also own Pixy Stix, yes.
Wow.
Spoiler alert.
Wow.
Spoiler alert.
Holy.
But also with these Pixy Stix, I feel like I should have a pan flute dancing around the lobby. Come, children, come. Hear the story of Pixy Stix. Their origins date back to 1942. Lots of our candies, for some reason, all go back to the 20s. They're all classics. This one is a youngster in comparison. 1942, the Fruzola Company, Salt Lake City,
Fruzola,
had a drink wisely named Fruzola. It was a drink mix, not unlike Kool-Aid. So you would buy the powder, and it was supposed to be mixed into water, so you would get a sugary drink. Fruzola realized that a lot of kids were buying this and just ingesting the powder directly. Not bothering to mix it in with the water, thus diluting it. So the owner of the Fruzola Company, J. Fish Smith. Now, the initial J, the middle name Fish, the last name Smith. What kind of a name is that J that he would need to initialize that and not the fish part?
No JF.
I wouldn't want to be associated with it. Yeah, my name is Fish. But then
Jeff?
again, you've got, maybe this was the guy from Barney Miller. Who knows?
Abe Vigoda?
So he found that children were eating the mix and not mixing it with the water, so he modified it. He put a spoon in it to make it easier for kids to eat just the mix. And he called it Lick-a-Maid from that point on. Huh. Now, Fruzola, about a decade later, 1952, becomes Sunline. So they changed their name. So the owner of Sunline, who I assume is a descendant of J. Fish Smith, Menlo F. Smith, I think he wisened up. He actually initialized the fish.
Fish Jr.?
Up until 1952, this Fruzola Lick-a-Maid product was specific to Utah and Salt Lake City. So Sunline made Lick-a-Maid nationwide. But Lick-a-Maid at this point wasn't the candy stick. It was still just a spoon in a, maybe, I don't know if it was plastic or wooden or what have you, but it was just a spoon in a packet of powder. Fast forward, 1959, Pixy Stix are invented. So it's the Sunline Company. So yes, everybody's burning question is this the same exact powder that you can find in your Lick-a-Maid / Fun Dip today? Yes, it is. And I can confirm eating all these flavors of Pixy Stix, it is the same consistency. It is the same flavor as if you were dipping the candy stick into your Fun Dip. That's how they call it today. But for several years, it was known as Lick-O-Made. So after 1959, after Pixy Stix were invented, it did exist as a Pixy Stick in the tube, along with Lick-O-Made, together, side by side. Several years later in the 60s, the candy stick was added to Lick-O-Made, and then over the years, it started to become known as Fun Dip. Now, the dark history of Pixy Stix.
It's dark history.
It is dark, and I am shocked. I was shocked to read this. 1974, Ronald Clark O'Brien, the man who killed Halloween, as he's known.
I know this story.
He mixed cyanide into a Pixy Stick, gave it to his 8-year-old son, and the son died from eating it. So he could collect on his insurance money because he was heavily in debt. He also gave a cyanide-laced Pixy Stick to his daughter, who chose not to eat it and thus lived, and also to 2 random kids who were trick-or-treating, who also didn't eat it. Probably the give was, this is open, and I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah. No, I see that dead boy on your floor. I'm not. No.
Oh.
Right. I know this story in the context of this real life story became part of this urban legend about tainted Halloween candy.
Razor blades and apples.
Razor blades and apples, and checking your kids' candy. And it was because of this guy that was specifically trying to kill his own children for an insurance payout, but it has since become like an urban legend that if you don't check your kids' candy, they could potentially be poisoned.
Well, this apparently existed before him because he was counting on this as a cover, that he would get away with it because, this was given to him by some stranger. And that's why he was trying to give it to his daughter and to these other 2 kids too, because somebody in the neighborhood was poisoning the kids. So he wanted to cash in on that fear and then get himself off. But it didn't work. Did not work. His wife later on stressed that his son did not eat the candy willingly, that the father forced him to eat it as well. So he was convicted. 10 years later, 1984, he was executed. So dark history to Pixy Stix.
Way to bring this show down.
Another notable pop culture touchstone, thanks to Pixy Stix, a completely memorable scene from one of our favorite films, and I think I can say that for everyone here, The Breakfast Club. Ali Sheedy, at one point, makes a sugary sandwich with Pixy Stix. She did that herself. The sandwich consisted of butter, Captain Crunch cereal, gummy lizards, and a couple of Pixy Stix. She chose Pixy Stix at the last minute before they filmed the scene because she thought it would make it extra weird. And she had to really eat 3 of those sandwiches for various takes. They used to have giant Pixy Sticks.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring that up.
And like the big hard plastic
straws. Yes.
Which have been discontinued, unfortunately.
Oh, too much sugar, huh?
Yep. There are 4 constant Pixy Stix flavors, and I can contest to that because in my package there are 4 flavors: grape, cherry, orange, and Maui Punch, which is blue, kind of a Hawaiian punch tasting flavor. And as we know, Lick-O-Made or Fun Dip has grape and cherry. So when you're eating grape and cherry Pixy Stix, it's the same exact thing as if you're eating Fun Dip.
And there's still little colored stripes down the straw.
Yep, it's it looks like this. Yeah.
The trick is to not put that in your mouth because then it gets wet and it closes up.
As a kid, you don't have a lot of motor coordination. Like if you're too young to not get it wet. And then it closes up. And then this is disgusting. And I apologize up front.
At least you're not eating it on air. So.
But I, as a kid, in order to get everything that I could out of the Pixy Stick after it became wet and I couldn't get to the... Did I cut it open? No. I ate the entire... paper.
What?
That's a misnomer. I didn't actually eat it and swallow it. I would chew on the paper to get out the powder from the paper.
That's worse than cyanide.
So I would have like a spitball at the end of it.
You're gonna make me vomit. Oh, I thought you were going to tell me I broke it in half. No, you full Nelson that time. You went right in.
Pixy Stix, to this day, are still the most popular Halloween candy in one particular state. And now, can we guess which state that is?
Where they make sugar? Georgia.
You're right.
Oh!
Georgia. A direct tie-in to our first film.
Yeah, I was going to say it really matches up with the movie then.
Yeah.
You need a lot of Pixy Stix for this next movie, by the way.
So, all right. So here, let me disperse the Pixy Stix. Who wants grape? Who wants cherry? Who wants orange?
They don't make green. They don't make a lime, like a lemon.
All right.
lime.
Christina gets grape. What do you want, Jeff?
I guess I want to go with the Hawaiian Punch flavor.
The Hawaiian Punch. So you get the blue. I'll take the cherry.
Okay, fair enough.
And let's go back to the theater.
All right.
And let's sit down for Grizzly.
I'm tweaking right now.
Grizzly. Now, I hear the size.
Mm-hmm.
Grizzly is the type of movie. This is why I do this podcast. Why I do this podcast. It doesn't have to be a movie I like. It has to be a crappy movie. It has to be a movie that I can tear apart with relish, not with anger, but with relish. And that's
all
Grizzly.
the criteria are here for this movie.
Grizzly.
Available on Tubi. So you know it's craptastic.
So I cheated on the assignment.
No.
Oh, yeah.
You
I
cheat.
cheated.
You cheat. You bounder.
You went to IMDb.
Cheat.
Nope. I watched the Riff Tracks version.
Oh, boo to you.
I'm going to tell you right now, if any of my jokes transfer over, I did not take it from them.
I have seen the Riff Tracks version, but I did not watch it for this.
And this was the only way I could get my son to sit down and watch this with me. And
you couldn't do it alone, could you?
And I actually paid $3 American for this
that you can never get back.
No, it was worth every penny because it was the Riff Tracks version. Because it was available for free. The Riff Tracks version was also available for free, but I hate commercials with the fiery light of 1,000 suns. So I will do anything.
Advertisements pay someone's bills.
I hate ads. You know, during the Super Bowl, when everybody's like, "Did you see this ad?" I'm like, "Nope." When the ads come on, I leave the room. They're wasting their dollars.
Well, as somebody who spent many years in the advertising marketing department, you are not my target market.
No, I'll do anything to avoid an ad. If I listen to a podcast and they're like, you know, if you pay our Patreon, you don't have to hear ads. I'm like, I'll pay. I'll do anything. Really? I hate ads. Yes. No.
If it makes it more palatable for you, then I guess that's worth it. That's worth it. I mean, not the ads. I mean the
Riff Tracks version.
The Riff Tracks, yeah.
So, but even watching the Riff Tracks version, after about 50 minutes,
50 or 15?
50. My son says to me, "How much of this movie is left?" So I paused it so we could see the runtime, and he goes, "It feels like we've been watching this for 4 hours."
It's a gift that keeps on giving. That's why.
And it's not a long movie. That's the thing.
No,
it's not a long movie. It's like, what, 85 minutes or something?
But it feels endless.
So here's the setup. I've got a lot of interesting factoids about this as well. Film Ventures International. And this is one of the great things that I love about 70s movies. You get all these bizarre production company logos coming up, and they're usually like one-off places. Not so with Film Ventures International. The logo comes up and it's the Georgia peach, and it just looks cheesy. So that you know what you're in for with a movie like this. They also distributed Day of the Animals, which was a quasi sequel to Grizzly. I was going
to say, because you got
wasn't really
actors, right?
Same actors, but not the same character. So it's not really a sequel.
Which is very confusing.
But it opens up. It's got this, what's the character's name? Don, who is a helicopter pilot who is giving a tour of the wilderness. He's like Jimmy Dean crossed with Jimmy Carter. You know, he's this good old boy. So he's giving a tour of the forest and giving some ecological background to what's going on. And the music is like this happy-go-lucky Willy Wonka type, you know, orchestration, like belying none of what's gonna be coming. They really should have a disclaimer at the beginning. Any similarity to Jaws is purely coincidental here.
You mean the movie that came out 1 year prior to this?
1 year prior.
Nonstop too. There's so many scenes that are exactly like Jaws. You're like, how did they get away with
They
this?
just took the script and put a bear in it.
And having these three characters like that are obviously aping the three characters from Jaws. You have the cop who's Brody.
Yep.
You have the wildlife expert who is
Scotty.
Hooper. And then tenuously, the helicopter pilot is the Quint role. Then I also noticed that the director of photography's name is Will Assman. So,
and let me tell you that the riff tracks guys also noticed that. And that is a recurring joke throughout the riff tracks.
Assman.
They also, when the producer's name comes up at the beginning, Edward L. Montero, they said, "Hello, my name is Edward Montero. You watch my Grizzly movie. Prepare to die."
Oh my gosh, this guy has a backstory.
We're gonna get into it, right?
We will on the back end. On the back end.
Yeah.
But it felt like these scenes in the beginning that are over the opening credits, with the music and everything, it's like I'm on Soarin' over California. That's what the opening to this is like.
And they like that so much they reuse it like 3 times in the movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then you're introduced to the ranger station and your cast of characters. You have Christopher George, who is ostensibly the star of the movie, as Ranger Michael Kelly. He had a pretty good resume in terms of TV acting. He was in a show called Rat Patrol that I've never seen, but apparently it was a huge hit. Rat Patrol. In the 60s. But as time went on, he got into more and more genre film roles. So in the 70s and early 80s, I remember when we talked about Tourist Trap, how Chuck Connors wanted to be the new horror star, like on a level of Christopher Lee or Vincent Price, and he never quite got there. Christopher George, I think, almost did it. He was in Exterminator. He was in City of the Living Dead. He was in Graduation Day. He was in Pieces, which I just talked about a couple of weeks ago, and Mortuary. So he was like a horror guy in the late 70s, and then this in early 80s. So he's Ranger Kelly. And he's the one that has to deal with the bear problem, much in the same way that Chief Brody has to deal with the shark problem. We open the film with the bear attack on the 2 female hikers. So you get the red herring of the one ranger coming out of the woods when they're all scared because they hear rustling in the bushes. And then the guy comes out on his horse. "Oh, you 2 ladies, you be careful. You check in when you come back down to the ranger station." Doesn't offer to help them or accompany them back down to the ranger station.
No, you find your own way. I'm on the horse. You're never going to keep up. But this right up front answers that age-old question, does a country girl poop in the woods? So we did get that answer. Off she goes.
Because she doesn't want to clean up the dishes after they cook.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the way I get out of it all the time. Sorry, I got to poop. I'm not cleaning those dishes.
And she looks like Daisy Duke. She's like right off the set of Dukes of Hazzard as well.
Yeah, this is interesting.
This is apparently their hiking gear.
This bear just hates flannel. This is his whole motivation. It's just, you wearing flannel? I'm going to kill you.
I was watching at the beginning and they're showing all the people like in the parking lot, supposedly getting ready to go into this park pre-grizzly attack. And you see all these supposed backpackers carrying, number 1, ill-fitting backpacks. And number 2, they have like shiny high-heeled shoes, the men too. So it's like, you guys are going hiking in these shoes?
That's not proper attire at all.
I mean, the hiking boots existed in the 70s. I'm just saying they could have sprung.
Daisy Duke shorts. I got to look good when I'm out there in the woods.
Well, I can flirt with the ranger who comes and scolds us to go back to the ranger station. So the first girl that gets it is the one who unfortunately stays behind and has responsibility and cleans the.
This is what happens when you clean dishes.
Yep. So you get a big fake bear paw that comes and swats at her.
It's a lot of
her arm goes flying in one direction.
This bear has got a killer swipe on him. It is unbelievable. Later in the movie, he takes a horse's head clean off.
With one swipe. He's got like a lightsaber of a paw.
I was gonna say he's like a Wampa attack. Yeah, he's all out, man.
And then he tosses. You see the girl's body go the other direction. She flies off screen.
Maybe he did like a whoosh.
And then the second girl comes back and flips out and runs. Then you get like the bear cam, which is like the Evil Dead bear cam, right? chasing her. So she finds an abandoned cabin, and she thinks,
yeah, no thanks. I'd rather face the bear than go into an abandoned cabin. Well, that looks good.
So the bear knocks through the wall to get to her. Then you see this ridiculous shot of her in slow motion, her head going from one side of the screen to the other. Slow-mo slap to the face.
And then that slow-mo echo as it pans out into the wilderness, and you just hear her scream over and over again. I'm like, that guy on a horse, didn't you hear this?
Then we go back to the ranger station, where you see Ranger Kelly, who is sweet on Allison, who is the daughter of the owner of the campground, I think is what the deal is, or the owner of the resort or whatever.
Are you asking us if we paid attention?
They spend a lot of time talking about the quality of the wine served in the restaurant.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
So Tom, who is the flirty ranger who encountered the two girls pre-bear attack, comes down oh, these two girls that I just saw haven't checked in yet. So let's go check on them. So they find the mutilated remains of Daisy Duke in the shack, and they realize they got a bear problem.
Immediately, they know it's a killer bear.
Mm-hmm. And then Allison falls into the bloody puddle, puts her hand right in, as they didn't find, they're searching all day into the night, and it took her to trip and find the body and the remains. Correct. Bears don't eat people. This one did.
And then they imply that there's two bears and immediately setting up a sequel.
So then we get, and who's the guy that's playing the Murray Hamilton character? Is he the mayor? Who is this guy? Is he the chief of police? I don't know.
He's the head of the park.
He's the head of the park. Yeah. Okay. So he's the one that doesn't want to shut things down. And
surprised he wasn't.
And Kelly is trying to I'm not the one in charge. Yes, you are. It's not the owner that's going out there and taking care of the people. It's you. You are the one in charge.
This is my woods.
So then he wants to bring in Arthur Scott, who's called Scotty for the rest of the movie. So again, he's the Hooper character who's wearing bear suits and fur in the wilds, because he is an animal lover and he wants to track the behavior of the animal and the animals in the park.
By the way, I have a question here. So he calls him on the CB radio from a landline.
Right. And this guy's dragging out a giant phone, and then he gets pissed when someone calls him. He's like, don't take the phone. Simple as that. I told you not to call me. How else am I supposed to get a hold of you? Email hasn't been invented yet.
And he's even wearing a wool hat like Hooper does.
It's so bad.
I'm shocked that they even have they have an Indianapolis scene. An attempted Indianapolis scene at the end. Yeah. Where's the scene with the crushed, foam cup? I'm looking for that too. So then they're talking about how Arthur or Scotty or whatever his name is tagged all the bears and we moved them. Oh no, you must have missed him. So you never really know where this bear came from. They got missed. And for somehow the largest bear in the world got missed, but he did get missed.
Yeah, that actually gets explained a little bit in the novelization.
Oh, it does. I'm sorry. I missed all those plot points. I'm sorry.
Did you read the novelization for this?
No, I did read the Cliff Notes on what the motivation was for the bear. You want to know? I'll read it to you right now.
The bear's motivation.
Please share. Please share.
Okay. It was written by Will Collins. Actually gave several specific reasons as to why the bear has started to kill and eat humans that were never mentioned in the film. It grew too large, too fast, forcing its mother to drive it off in order to fend for itself before it could even be taught anything about how to find and or hunt for its food. It had seriously injured its jaw before entering the park, thus causing it excruciating pain and effectively preventing it from eating anything that could not be easily found and or caught anyway. And one of its first human victims was a woman who was having her period, with the smell of her menstrual blood attracting it to her and thus making her easy prey that could be first stalked, then easily taken by surprise and overpowered, then killed and eaten on the spot.
Okay.
So that's a lot.
Obviously, it's more logical that her menstrual blood attracted the bear and not like what they were cooking over the campfire.
Or the fact that the mom said, you're too big. I can't feed you anymore.
So in other words,
apparently
this is too much to give to the average moviegoer, but they had to have something that the director to give to the bear for his motivation. So this.
So exactly what's my motivation here? do I not like flannel?
By the way, I love that you're giving the bear a Rolf voice or a Fozzie voice from the Muppets.
Waka waka.
Oh,
You know about the bear actor, right?
What was
Yes.
his name? His name
Teddy.
was Teddy.
Teddy.
Yeah, real original.
They
Yeah.
fed him marshmallows to get him to open his mouth.
and they used a green string to keep him away from the actors because they
A
thought
green
that,
string. Yeah.
that it looked, because this bear was from like a preserve.
Mhm.
And in whatever area that it was roped off in, it had an electric fence. So I guess this green string
It was
reminded
enough
the
for him
bear.
to be like, you're gonna get zapped.
Yeah.
Stay away.
They had to remind the actors, stay on our side of the string, not the bear's side.
How's it gonna kill me?
So
I
once
want a bear hug.
I told my son that the bear's name was Teddy and that they were feeding him marshmallows, he started rooting for the bear for the rest of the film.
You do
He was
root
like,
for the bear.
"Run, buddy, run!"
And let me
Don't
just
let
tell
them
you,
get you.
this bear and our cocaine bear, who is not a real bear, by the way,
Mhm.
the bears just in general must be a dentist's dream because they can like distend their lips so you can actually see their teeth. Dentist doesn't have to do any work. He can just get right in there.
Mhm.
Do you know what you call a bear who practices dentistry?
What?
A molar bear.
Oh.
You walked right into that one.
By the end of this, I'll be banging my head against a tree, just like our cocaine bear.
Christina's already doing it. She's already almost unconscious.
So is Arthur Scott trying to sneak up on deer wearing a bear suit or a deer suit? What kind of a
I
suit
think
is he
had a
wearing?
thing. I don't know. At one point, I was going to say there no animals were harmed in the making of this movie. Then I'm like, oh no, there's a dead deer. They're dragging around.
So then we get a scene where the backpackers are panicking once news spreads.
Yeah, this was great. How'd they get the news?
Yeah. So
Did they all have cell phones?
so they have to have the scene where like the bathers are running out of the water. So it's the closest equivalent is that the backpackers
titillating,
running through the woods to get out of their campsites really quickly. So then the Rangers like kind of canvass the area. So then you have Ranger Tom, who's the flirty guy from the beginning, and his, I guess, new girlfriend, who's also a ranger, who was played by a Penthouse pet, by the way.
Yes, she was 1977.
So she decides, oh yeah, the bear's not in this area. I don't know why they come to that conclusion, but the bear's not in this area. So you go, I'm going to dip my feet in the water, which becomes I'm going to go skinny dip in my underwear, and
Right.
which is not quite
How did
skinny
he get
dipping.
behind the falls? How did he get behind her? Because he's clearly watching her, and then all of a sudden she's underneath the waterfall, and he's back there, just a big giant paw. That we missed that in the first movie because we do end up at a waterfall in Cocaine Bear.
They're kind of try to hide her, and this is a PG movie, so they couldn't have her naked in a PG movie. So they give her a flesh-colored bra. So until the very end, you think that, wow, she is actually topless, but that's not the case. So
You're on a massive hunt for a killer bear. Let's take off my clothes.
yeah, yep.
That's exactly what I would do.
No,
Right.
that's not very professional. I don't think.
But she pays for her stupidity. The water runs red with her blood.
Yes, poor Ranger Gale. But yeah,
And
she
then-
was Penthouse Pet of the Year, 1977. Victoria Lynn Johnson. Go look her up.
And so then after that scene, they don't discover her for, a few minutes yet into the movie. But there's a scene where Christopher George is up in Don's helicopter and Don makes a joke. I could almost psychically hear Christina's anger at this joke. Maybe the riff tracks. Maybe the Riff Tracks team kind of tempered it, but Don says to Kelly, this bear is sort of like me. He likes women and keeps moving.
This movie, like many 70s horror movies, does not give women any credit.
No. And
Let's just say.
then right after that line, he turns to Kelly in his helicopter. What about that filly you've been riding? And then Kelly does a double take. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was like that.
What? You have a meaningful relationship with
Yeah.
a woman? What?
Yeah. What? Why? What are you thinking?
They come upon Scott after they land the helicopter, after they think they see something, and it's actually Scott with his bear suit on.
I would have shot him.
Ain't you a big bag of grits? He says.
Kiss my grits. That was vernacular back then.
And so then, of course, because he's the expert, he's got to look through, at the evidence the bear's left behind. It's, at least 15 feet. It's a 2,000 pounder. And I think
I know.
later,
You immediately knew, the size of it and whatnot. It's a predator
Mhm.
with a cloaking device. This bear apparently is a predator cloaker.
And then the next scene is probably my favorite kill. The most unbelievable kill. The one really doofy camper is about to get lucky like the guy that looks like a drunken Frank Oz, his
Speak
wife
of
or
Fozzie
his
Bear.
girlfriend whispers in his ear. He's like, roar, roar, you know, it's almost, he's basically twisting his mustache as he's drinking his Schlitz beer.
Hey, don't be malign Schlitz.
Like the atmosphere is, you know, so romantic because they're about 3 feet away from campers on the
Right,
either
correct,
side of their site.
Yep, if this tent's a rocket.
And she's getting in the tent. She's getting her negligee on and everything else. And the camera keeps cutting back.
Negligee to camping.
The camera keeps cutting back to him, like with his big bug eyes. Whoa, whoa.
I'm pitching a tent.
And then the bear, you know, talking about the prophecy scene.
Mm-hmm.
The bear's throwing this woman back and forth until he impales her on something.
Yeah.
And then the guy is like traumatized. Ah, you see, like
But meanwhile, they chase all the campers out of the woods. Why are these people even out there now?
I know. Where are they? Are they like in a safe zone or something that they've established?
I don't want to like try to, you know, apply logic to this movie, but I do think that earlier in the film, they say the bear's in the high country, so they tell the backpackers to come down from the high country, and the people who are camping are not
country,
not up in the mountains.
Yeah,
so
like
they were told it was safe there.
Well, I'm sure, you know, you go to like Glacier National Park, and because of the grizzlies, you walk around with a can of pennies. You most bears.
Well, I was in Glacier, you know, last year, and yes, you know, obviously, again, we don't want to try to apply logic here, but like if you go backpacking, usually you have a lot of gear that is made to prevent bears from coming into your.
Did they not invent bear spray back then?
And even giving them the fact that it's the 70s, you'd think that if you are in the woods and you are there to backpack, you know what you're doing.
You're right. You know, you're straight out of the Manhattan. You're like, we're gonna go.
Right.
I'm gonna get a 6-pack. We're gonna go in the woods.
Schlitz. Ooh, I'm gonna bring my necklace.
And then they're interviewing the guy. Sally loved me, mister. She really did. He's not upset that she's dead, that somebody that actually loved him is now gone, and he's never gonna get this again. I mean, she actually loved me.
Yeah, that bear just ruined his evening.
I know.
He's like, dude, I was about to get some.
And then we have the scene. Also, I'm just going to keep throwing out scenes from Jaws here. You have the scene in Jaws where all the hunters are out on their boats and they're throwing dynamite in the water and they're causing commotion. So you get the same thing here. You get all the hunters that are.
This guy's an idiot. He literally has a loaded gun.
He throws his gun.
You're out in the woods hunting a bear. You see a bear and you run away. First of all, you should never run away from a bear. That is integral number one. Like I said, my grandfather, there's a family story that, you know, as kids, we lived out, my parents still live out in the middle of nowhere, hillbillies, dirt roads, the whole bit. And in the summertime, we would spend in the woods cutting firewood for the winter. And my grandfather, my stepfather, and his brother were all out in the woods. And lo and behold, they're cutting wood or whatever. A black bear is descending upon them. And this thing, from what I'm being told, is, you know, full out throttle run. It's coming right at them. My stepfather and his brother jump behind a log. My grandfather stands his ground. And at the very last second, sticks both arms up into the air and screams, "Yeah!" And this thing, as the story goes, turns tail and runs away because you have shown dominance that you are bigger than he is. Whether that story is true or not, it doesn't matter because it stuck with me. And I'm like, well, I guess if a bear charges me, that's what I need to do.
You got to do an Al Pacino impression from Scent of a Woman. Yeah.
That's actually where he got it from. My grandfather taught him that. So.
I mean, it kind of depends on the bear and the circumstances. And you can
a grizzly bear is not going to. Yeah.
Right. A grizzly is not going to back off because that grizzly knows it's bigger than you.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how big was this bear?
Well, black bears are not that big.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's that one scene where these hunters they're calling it a cub. It's not a baby cub. It's a black bear.
Right.
And if you watch this movie, it's supposed to be this 15-foot grizzly. And there's a lot of shots where you just see the bear paws, the legs walking or whatever. And it changes color constantly. Sometimes it's a grizzly bear. Sometimes it's a black bear. This bear's got some camouflage.
But getting back to the inept hunter who throws his gun down and runs, he does actually he jumps into the stream. So that saves him. The next scene
Bears
after
can't
that,
swim?
obviously this one didn't feel like it was worthy of a swim.
I didn't bring my shorts.
Yeah.
Wait, I do want to mention before you move on that the Riff Tracks guys did have a good joke at this point when all the hunters were going into the woods, and they said this is the yokels take matters into their own hands section of this horror movie. Please choose your favorite yokel and place your bets on how they will die a horrific death.
This particular Riff Tracks was pretty inspired. Sometimes there are dead Riff Tracks episodes where they just don't bring it.
Mine anything.
But it really depends on the source material. But Grizzly, they did come to the fore here. So then there's another scene between Kelly and the owner of the park, and Kelly asks him, "Why are you on my ass?" Because there's a bear killing people and it's your watch.
You're a maverick.
Eye-rolling dialogue.
No, is this also where he says a bear is a bear? He goes, a bear is not just a bear. And I'm like, very insightful.
He's discussing with Tom, the other guy from earlier in the movie. Oh yeah, one of these hunters, he got away from the bear. That's one lucky hunter. Somebody actually wrote that dialogue?
That's one lucky hunter. The hunter who actually survived. Can you write that I'm lucky?
I mean, obviously they're trying to say this grizzly is like out of the ordinary, but an average grizzly, like at the heavy end, would be about 800-900 pounds. And they're saying this thing is 2,000 pounds. This thing would be so large you'd be able to see it from space. Okay.
There it is. I see we're in the International Space Station. We can see the bear.
The idea that an object that large could hide in the woods for any length of time.
Hey, Bigfoot's done it for years.
Okay.
Then
I heard that eye roll.
The big set piece is that our ranger Tom, who has unbelievably survived up to this point, goes into the tower as the rest of our star-studded cast are on the ground. He
deserves to be eaten. This is the worst shot ever, by the way.
The bear takes out the tower, knocks the tower down to get to Ranger Tom, and he is successful. He is successful.
And they keep talking about the fact that this bear is eating these people to the bone, and yet you never see any bones. They're fully intact humans laying there with fake blood on them.
The only thing that was realistic was the cache, which is something that grizzlies do. It caches the food for later.
Yeah.
That's usually why people get attacked, actually, because they come into the area where grizzlies cached the food, and the grizzly thinks the people are a threat and they're coming for its food, so then it will attack. That's 99% of attacks are because of that, not because it's hungry for people.
Most bears take credit cards now, though. So,
and so right around the tower attack is when we get the pseudo Indianapolis monologue given by Don, who it's like they cobble together a story about Native Americans with smallpox who are eaten by bears. And that's it, really. It's not like any kind of real dramatic, I was there kind of a story.
No, he's just
this is something I heard about bears.
It's just right around the time you tell me to go, up yours. And I'm like, oh, remember that was a real insult? But now Scotty wants this bear. And I'm like, you've done nothing all movie. Now all of a sudden you're like hell-bent on getting this bear. We get to the scene of the little kid playing with the rabbit. And I lost my mind because I forgot this scene stuck with me as a kid. So I probably saw this like on a Monday night movie or something. I probably shouldn't have been. And we're going to get about it because at the end of when this movie was over, Tubi then queued up Snow Beast. And I lost my mind with that as well.
Oh, Snow Beast, I've seen many, many times.
So I have a story with that. But this scene of this little kid in the fence with the rabbit, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, holy shit, I remember this. Like, this freaked me out. That this kid, because again, as a kid, I played in the woods all the time. This stupid bear comes out of nowhere. The white fence, you're getting like these Cujo vibes going on. But yeah, little boy survived, but lost a leg in the process.
And do these people live on the campgrounds? It appears to be their house. It's not like they're just renting out the cabin, because this is the house mom that's, sweeping up.
Knows no boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, let's get in really close, kids. So
but that's again, Alex Kentner. That's the Alex scene right there.
Except that kid did not survive. Alex did not survive. This kid did. Well, part of him did it, at least.
Then we get the racist Vietnam flashback from Don. So this guy is just you love this character by the time he actually gets it in the end. And they're bringing a bazooka along. at the end of the
Which
movie
they
in the
don't
helicopter.
use.
They don't use it once.
They're in the helicopter and they see it, and instead of using the bazooka, they think it's a great idea to use the rifle, which has been ineffective up to this point.
Yes, yeah, and this chase is, I mean, it's right up there with the barrel chase in Jaws. I think they used the same music.
It's funny that you say that, because I was like, why are they playing the adventure music? Like, it's in Jaws. Like, there were so many scenes where I was like, I just can't believe they got away with this.
Yeah, no, it's even the movie poster. It says straight up, largest Jaws in the land or something to that extent.
Universal did not seek action against this movie, but they did 4 years later from this same production company who did like literally a shark movie. So Universal's like, okay, this is enough. We're going to have to sue them, but didn't do it with this one. Didn't do it with
because
this
they saw the final movie and they're like,
This climax is really extended because they spend the night, and like the actual action of the climax doesn't happen until the next morning.
Yeah,
and Jeff, when you said that the horse gets its head swiped off.
Yeah, and he's in a field. He's in a field. The bear is nowhere to be found, and all of a sudden he's magically there. I'm like, again. The bear's got a cloaking device.
And then
2,000-pound bear.
Yes. Nobody saw him. Nobody saw him. We're looking for him. Hey, anybody see a bear? Raccoons are like, I think he's over there.
The bear expert gets it. The only character that you like in the movie gets it. And he's buried in the shallow grave, but he's still alive. So you think that, okay, they're sparing him. No, then he actually dies. Like, then why keep him alive?
I was more concerned about that twig that was right near his eye. And I'm like, oh, that would freak me out. Get it away from me.
He survives just to get killed egregiously, maybe just to pad out the runtime just a little bit.
The bear already dug the hole, so you might as well use it. Put this guy in there. Yes.
And then Kelly and Don find him. Like, how are we getting him back? He's not going in my copter, I'll tell you that. Let's just bury him, and then we'll tell everybody where he is.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, leave him out here for something else to eat.
I kind of like that old boy. I gave him a hard time about that whole Dom calling his mama thing, but I kind of like that old boy. Their logic is that the bear's going to come back because he buried Scotty, and he does. It's like, why is he going to come back? Well, why does salmon swim upstream?
I know people who refer to salmon as salmon.
Really?
So yes, yes, indeed.
He's a mother-loving runner, and the copter chases him.
Just turn that blade on. The bear stands up and goes right to the copter. Just put the blades on.
They set the chopper down after a little chase. They get out of the chopper. The bear, obviously a guy in a bear suit, like turns his body around like the Hulk. Don gets a big bear hug.
Yeah, he stands there and waits. Do you remember that scene in Austin Powers where he's slowly going to get run over by the giant steamroller? He's like, no. Mm-hmm. And then they cut. That's what it was. He just stood there as the bear moved in on him. I'm like, just get out of his way. Get out of his. Oh, no, we got to hug. Crushed him.
And then out comes the bazooka at the end.
I'm surprised they didn't just have an oxygen tank and throw it in his mouth.
Yeah, I know. But then you get a big, flaming hole where the bear used to be after the bazooka blast.
Did you get it? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure.
And then you get a sad, mournful variation on that jaunty theme that you heard at the beginning of the movie to close you out. I loved every minute of this.
Well, like I said, I've seen this before because when that scene of the kid and the little rabbit showed up, I lost my mind. I'm like, I have seen this. Wow. Yes.
Directed by William Girdler, who, as we mentioned before, directed Day of the Animals the following year. His follow-up to this hit, because this was a hit in 1976, released in May of that year, filmed in the fall of 75, a very quick follow-up to the success of Jaws. It was probably still in theaters at that point in the fall of 75.
Sure, yeah.
It didn't hide the fact that it was just a quick cash-in on Jaws, and people ate it up. They went to go see it on a $750,000 budget. It made $39 million at the box office.
I was going to say, I told my son that. I said, this movie made $39 million. And he said, people will watch anything.
Yeah, well, we also didn't really have that many options back then.
Yeah, 76 was like the year because that was kind of like a vapid year in terms of blockbusters. Like you had Jaws, which was like the start of something new in cinema, which was the summer blockbuster. It took Hollywood a bit of time with Star Wars
another year before
to
Star
follow
Wars,
up on that, and then year after year after year, you get a summer blockbuster from that point on.
Yeah.
So Hollywood learned, but 76 was, I think, too soon. And they were kind of trying to catch up. And this was like a cash in on that Jaws success. And hey, audiences
but there's always that happens in anything. Anytime you have a big hit movie, someone's going to try and replicate it, whether it's, the Poseidon Adventure, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of crazy boat movies or Airplane, all of a sudden let's crash an airplane somewhere. So, but the movie poster, I mentioned it before, painted by Neil Adams, famed comic illustrator Neil Adams. That's all you need to get in the door, because that is just a little girl. Well, it's a woman sitting in front of the campfire with this mammoth grizzly.
Yeah. And I have vivid memories of that poster.
Enough to just, as a kid, the imagination is there. Boom. I'm in, it's just taking the Jaws poster in reverse. They expect the little girl swimming with the shark coming up. It's the bear looming over her. Crazy.
I found it funny that on TV, when it was shown on TV initially, they renamed it Killer Grizzly. Maybe so because Grizzly Adams was on TV and they wanted to disassociate themselves. I don't know.
Big Ben on a bender.
Perhaps. Talking about Ben, the character of Don, the helicopter pilot, was originally supposed to be played by Ben Johnson.
Oh
no!
And he dodged a bullet. He dodged a grizzly.
He said, "No, I'm going to pass on that."
He's like, "I'm out. No way."
And Scotty, who is the bear expert, played by Richard Jackal, was a Best Supporting Actor nominee just 5 years before this movie.
Interesting. So let's go back to this Edward Montoro story, because I find this a little fascinating.
So he is like the head, if not the owner, of Film Ventures International. And so this place was known for making cheap knockoffs of Hollywood hits. Grizzly was such a success for Film Ventures International. It was a top grossing indie film of 1976, and it held the record from 1976 until 78 when Halloween came out and beat it as top grossing indie film.
Yeah, because I was just looking at the grosses for 1976, and Grizzly actually isn't even listed in here. Maybe because it's not
all the money and ran.
Well, maybe because it's not a major distributor. So Rocky's the number one movie of the year. Then a movie called To Fly, which I don't even know what that is. A Star is Born, King Kong, Silver Streak, All the President's Men, The Omen, The Enforcer, Midway, and The Bad News Bears is the top 10.
King Kong.
Yeah, and King Kong wasn't released until December, so that's very late in 76.
And it still made $52 million, according to this.
Yeah, I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if they're looking at that as the grand total of between 76 and 77, or just what it made during that year. But yeah, as you said, Edward Montoro, the head of Film Ventures International, came out with a movie called Great White in 1980, which was a complete ripoff of Jaws. So they didn't even hide the fact. Universal sued at that point. But yeah, Jeff, you're very gleeful about this backstory for Mr. Montero. So if you could share,
this guy's making all this bank off other people's properties, basically. But all of his investors got in the Screen Actor Guilds. He wasn't paying these guys. He never paid any of the Screen Actor Guilds, the actors, or they got no residuals. And in 1984, he basically disappeared with $1 million from the Film Ventures International bank account. And to this day, nobody knows where he is. They theorize he fled the country. He's probably in Mexico somewhere.
And probably changed his name, right? Probably.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And $1 million back then probably was substantial. I mean, $1 million now is still substantial, but they had to close the doors in 85 and file for bankruptcy.
This guy's like DB Cooper. They should have made an In Search Of about him.
So there's a weird history with the Grizzly 2, because there's a movie that came out in 77 called Claws, which was about a killer grizzly bear in Alaska, but it was re-released in 78 in Canada and Mexico as Grizzly 2 to capitalize on the success of this movie.
Okay.
And Jaws, obviously. But there is another Grizzly 2 called Revenge. It was shot, but it wasn't officially released until years later, that starred Laura Dern, George Clooney, and Charlie Sheen. Do we know anything about this?
Not only
And both of you
those
watched
three.
it?
Yes, we both watched.
It also has other stars in it. Louise Fletcher is in it for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And as we said, Gimli from The Mines of Moria.
That's right. John Rhys Davies.
Yeah.
Well, Salon, Raiders of the Lost Ark, who is playing weird, I don't know what he's doing here, but Charlie Sheen actually turned down the lead role in The Karate Kid to make this movie.
And he's in it for not even 5 minutes.
So if you watch this, they get top credit right up front. And then all three of them are killed off in the opening scene.
But you know what's funny about this is that you're watching the movie, and if you know the backstory, okay, so these scenes were filmed in 1983 that were unfinished. So whoever had the rights to it, whoever bought the rights to it, filmed other scenes fairly recently, and they injected them in.
Yeah.
So the movie starts, and you're watching like a really crisp and clean. It looks like one of these nature programs that they show on screen in Best Buy to show
CG
how good the TV looks. So you're like, whoa. And then all of a sudden the credits, George Clooney, Laura Dern, Charlie Sheen. And suddenly it cuts to obviously much older footage.
Yeah, because George Clooney is a baby. Well, so is Charlie Sheen.
They all are.
I mean, he was probably on Facts of Life at that point, George Clooney?
Yeah, so they're all killed by the bear in the first 5 minutes of this movie.
5 minutes.
They've got top billing in the credits.
Yeah. Yeah, most of this was actually filmed in Hungary, Budapest. And there's a really, you go on record numerous times, you denounce the rave scene in the Matrix, but there's a wacky concert that goes on during this thing.
Oh, this is what almost caused me to turn it off, because there's the staging this rock concert in the middle of the forest while the bear attacks are going on. And there are long, unending scenes of these bad bands rehearsing for this concert.
These people it was a real concert, and then they brought in these actors to film these scenes. People in the audience did not realize that these were not real bands, that these were not part of they were just there to film these scenes.
And one of them is like a Hungarian band.
Yeah.
Of old men.
I keep waiting for the saxophone player from Lost Boys to show up on stage. But
and the audience is loving it. The audience it's a huge audience. And these bands are terrible. They're terrible. Ugh.
But we bring up Jaws because the very end of the movie, they electrocute the bear. The editing is so horrible, but they literally use the close-up of the Jaws teeth in Jaws 2 in this movie. They steal scenes from Jaws 2 and make it look like it's the bear's mouth. I'm like, what?
So after watching this, Grizzly is just like a tentpole of cinema by comparison.
Grizzly is,
a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece. Grizzly 2, which is available on Tubi as well. Go check it out. Just the first 5 minutes.
And it's on Prime as well. You can watch
maybe
it
that's where I
Prime.
watched it. Maybe that's where I watched it.
So we just kind of skipped over buckets for Grizzly.
Yeah, well, we had to give the entire history of this thing going on here.
So what would we give out of 5 buckets of popcorn? Man. What would we give to Grizzly?
I can't go any higher than 2.5.
2.5.
2.5. It was entertaining. It was fun to discuss, but I did not watch the riff tracks. It might have been more enjoyable.
It was.
Yeah.
4 stars for the riff tracks, 1 star for this movie.
I'm going equal to Cocaine Bear. I'm giving it 3.5.
Wow.
This is right in my wheelhouse. I love the cringe factor. I will eat up that cringe factor all day long. And just anything that's, reminds me of, my 70s childhood, I welcome. So I enjoyed it. I really did.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, though, at the end, Tubi cues up another movie, and Snow Beast was another one of those probably Monday night movies.
Yes, but maybe we should cover that someday. Maybe assess that on its own.
I watched that through the crack of my bedroom door for 2 hours because my parents refused to let me watch it. So I have very fond memories of watching that from the edge of my bed through the crack in the door.
Yep. Killer Bigfoot movie. What more can you say?
What more can you say?
Yeah, another fun-filled episode. But what else did we do this week?
I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing else.
Nothing.
I got nothing to bring to the table today.
I watched a movie on Netflix called We Have a Ghost.
Is it a comedy? Or is
It's a horror comedy, but it ends up having some. I thought it would have like some Frighteners energy, but it's not as good as the Frighteners. It's about this family who's like the dad is played by Anthony Mackie, and he's been struggling for various reasons to get and keep a job. He's one of these guys who's always like on the hunt for like the next big thing. He gets involved in MLMs and blah, blah, blah. And the family has to keep moving. So they buy this house. It's haunted. The youngest son, Kevin, encounters the ghost and then tries to make friends with him to try to figure out why he's there. It's got like the beginning feels very much like Beetlejuice, where like Lydia, at the beginning of Beetlejuice is talking to the ghosts and she's like establishing a relationship with them, but then the adults come in and ruin everything. And that's pretty much what happens here, because Anthony Mackie's character and their oldest son decide that they can turn this into like a monetized YouTube channel, and make money off of the fact that they have a ghost in their house. But then the story starts to get a little convoluted. There's like a CIA agent who's been searching for proof of ghosts, and there's like this the story starts to like veer away, and like it just starts to get a little like what exactly are they doing here? It seems like they started off making one movie and changed their minds and made another. It was fine. I mean,
it was
fine.
Better than Grizzly.
It was better than Grizzly.
Okay. There you go.
It was better than Cocaine Bear, probably. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, but it wasn't great. I mean, if you want to give it a try, you'll probably find it at least somewhat amusing. There's a great scene with Jennifer Coolidge, who plays a medium, and I think she's genius. So I'm always happy to see her, but it's a very brief cameo.
See, I watched a movie that I did not enjoy as much as I did either Grizzly or Cocaine Bear. It is called Smile, and it is a horror movie that is now available on Prime.
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch this. So you
for no additional cost. No, I did not. So this is I don't want to give too much away if you're going to watch it, but
nope, I'm not watching it.
I'm going to.
it's like a force that goes from person to person, and it's causes the smile that you are very familiar with if you've ever seen an ad for this movie. The main character is a therapist, but okay. So my problem with this movie, without giving too much away, is that it seems to be written by 15-year-olds for 15-year-olds, even though it's an R-rated movie. Because every character, I'm a bit conservative when it comes to language, but every character is F this, F that. I can't effing believe this. And they're all supposed to be relatively sophisticated people. And, around my immediate vicinity, I don't know of anybody that talks like this. And there's a lot of like the main character is a therapist. And it just really bugs me, when they make a really blatant play for the most common denominator type of audience with the language that's used in some of these movies, like a mean-spirited kind of vibe. And it has a lot of moments that seem to be pandered to kids that have snuck into the theater. And so that's why I hope I haven't ruined it for you.
So are you saying that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
That's exactly
speaking
what
of
I'm
which,
saying.
I saw the trailer for that Evil Dead Rise again. No way in hell you are getting me to watch that movie. I am telling you right now, I will be sick that week. There is no way. I watched a co-feature. You are not getting me in the theater for that.
Yeah.
I'll be using that language. F that.
All right. So what are we doing next week then?
I find this interesting because this is coming out on 3/3/23, Creed 3 and Rocky 3, which I started watching yesterday.
Hey, and remember that old song, The Schoolhouse Rocks, 3 is a magic number.
Is it?
Maybe we'll hit magic next week. Who knows?
Ooh, that's a lot of boxing going on here.
But we just talked up Jonathan Majors last week, and we're going to be discussing him again.
Oh, he's so dreamy. So
Every time Jonathan Majors comes up, I want to tell people that if you haven't watched The Harder They Fall on Netflix, please go watch The Harder They Fall. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good
He's
movie.
great in it. Everybody is great in it. But so few people have watched this movie, and more people need to watch it. It's so
Netflix
good.
is weird because these movies come out and they may have like a big, you talk about it for like a week and then it's on to something else and it just gets buried. Yeah. There's too many options. I mean, I talk to my guys I work with and they're like, oh, you got to watch this show. And I'm like, well, what platform is it on? Well, I don't have Apple TV. I guess I can't watch that. Yeah. Right. There's a lot going on, but Creed 3, Rocky 3. So bring your boxing gloves.
Yes, please bring your boxing gloves. And thank you so much for listening this week.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
What do you get when you cross a skunk with a bear?
What?
Winnie the PU.
Are you making these up?
Say hello to my little cubs.